If you don't do anything else, you must do this, or else the program is doomed. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of Chatting Transformation. I'm Barry, I'm a change and transformation specialist, and I've been in the world of change and transformation for around about 20 years now, having done some of the most junior up to the most senior roles, and I've led some significant change and transformation activities. And the whole point of this podcast is for me to tell you about my experiences, my learnings, the lessons that I've identified, seen, implemented, so that when it comes to you and your change and transformation journey, it's just that little bit easier. And today I want to talk about what I see as the most important role within change and transformation delivery, and that is the role of the senior responsible owner. Now, it's a role that has come through in the last sort of 10 to 15 years and was very strong within the public sector because it came out of the managing successful programs world, and that became Cabinet Office best practice and was then very much adopted into kind of public sector governance. And the Cabinet Office best practice website explains that the senior responsible owner is the visible owner of the overall business change, accountable for successful delivery, and is recognised throughout the organisation as a key leadership figure in driving that change forward. And the clue's really in the title. They're senior, they're ultimately responsible, and they are the owner of the change and transformation. And for me, I think it's the most important role, and I'll talk a little bit about why I think that in a minute. For some of you out there, you may be thinking, I'm not really sure what Barry's talking about. That sounds like the sponsor to me, and sponsor is another term that exists at that senior level within change and transformation and comes from some of the other frameworks and methodologies that are out there. But I always focus on using the SRO term, the senior responsible owner term. I don't particularly like the term sponsor, and I don't like it for a couple of things. One, it doesn't have that same link to direct ownership that the term SRO does. So if many of us think about sponsor, we're thinking about somebody that kind of sits on the sidelines, that is someone that might just get involved to make sure things are going well, or use their power or influence to help, or might provide some resourcing or something like that, but ultimately isn't really involved in the day-to-day running or delivery of the programme. And when you use that terminology, that can be what the role that some people take on, and fundamentally that's not going to work. Each programme needs a senior responsible owner or someone doing that role. So I don't use the term sponsor, I don't like it, and wherever possible I try and influence that we change it to senior responsible owner because the name means a lot. The SRO is about driving responsibility and accountability at that senior level, which is why I like it. In fact, if it was up to me, I'd change it to senior accountable owner, but we can't do that. It's well known as senior responsible owner, and I think that's fine for now. And also, it is being an SRO is part of being a senior leader within an organisation. I'll talk a little bit more about how we select our SROs in the future, but effectively, if you're a senior leader, as well as running your business as usual activity, you should be absolutely prepared to be a senior responsible owner for transformation activity that's related to your area of responsibility and accountability. So what are some of the critical things about the SRO role? Well, from my kind of learnings and experience, it's really important that the SRO is involved right from the start. So right from the moment someone puts the idea up in that their hand up in that business area and says, I have an idea of how we can make things better for the future, and that potentially goes on to underpin a change and transformation activity, the SRO needs to be in there and be part of that. Now, ideally, if it is a senior leader from that part of the business, so the head of that function or the director of that function, or that director of that product or service or something like that, then that SRO is going to want to be involved in that conversation, because remember, as a senior leader, they're not just responsible for the here and now business as usual delivery of that function, they're also responsible for the sustainable future of that function, and so they need to be thinking about change and transformation activity that keeps their function relevant and up to pace for the future challenges. So the SRO is going to want to be in there from the start. They're going to want to be in there shaping exactly what's happening with the programme, because when they start to pull it together and we put together a business case, the business case is basically a contract for the SRO to go to the investment committee and say, if you give me these resources and you let me do this with my business unit or with my area, I will be able to deliver you these benefits. And if we think back to the previous episode, we talked about how benefits are the measurable improvements at the high level for the organisation. So the SRO is going and saying, if you give me this funding, this resource, these people, this latitude to do things slightly differently, this is what you're going to get in return. And if that business case is signed off, then that SRO is personally accountable for the delivery of those benefits. And I say personal, and within the public sector in particular, they will be named, and in some cases their name will go onto the Cabinet Office website that lists them as the SRO for a major project or programme. So it's very much a personal accountability within the work world for delivery of those benefits. So they want to be involved right from the start to make sure that what is being built they can influence, they understand, and they feel they're able to deliver it, and they can therefore take that message, get the funding, get the resourcing, and then go on to deliver the programme. The second is that they need to understand that as an SRO, they are the ultimate decision-making authority within that programme. So another learning I've had is I've gone to do health checks or stage gate assessments or other kind of just drop-ins of programs to understand what's going on, and I hear people saying, oh, the program board decided to do this, or the program board did this, and I always get a slight kind of prickly sensation at the back of my neck, because the program board is not a decision-making authority. A program board is an incredibly important governance mechanism. It brings both those involved in delivering the program and those stakeholders involved in the successful adoption of the benefits together, and it's a great location for discussion to take place, for information to be discussed, for various views, opinions, etc. to be counselled and given. But the board itself doesn't make the decision. The senior responsible owner is the one that makes the decision, because remember, they're personally accountable for the realisation of the benefits or delivery of the benefits. So the board, the SRO can sit there, and the SRO should chair the board and get all the information, and then might completely disagree with everything they've said and say, well, no, we're going to go this way and do that, and explain the reasons why they want to do it. It's in a meeting, it can be formally recorded within the governance of the programme, but it is the SRO who is the decision-making authority. And that's within the confines of the business case, so within the budget they're allocated, within the latitude of the organisation, within the resourcing envelope they're given, within the management and commercial framework that they're allowed to operate within. If they need to breach that business case, then they can go back to whoever signed off the business case, maybe the investment committee or the CEO, something like that, and say, going to exceed the business case, I need an amendment to the business case or something like that. But within the confines of the business case, in delivering the programme, the SRO is the ultimate decision-making authority, and if they need to go outside of that, then they can go and request an amendment to the business case. The third thing that the SRO needs to be all over is that they are running the programme in accordance with the organisation's controls and governance requirements. So as well as ensuring that they are delivering the right things, in that the programme is delivering the right capability, it's going to underpin the right new ways of working, and those new ways of working are going to deliver the benefits. Think back to the last episode. They also have to ensure that they're doing that in the right way. So that all, particularly again, well, across any organisation, but particularly in the public sector where we're dealing with public money, i.e. taxpayers' money, that the appropriate financial controls are in place, the appropriate governance controls are in place, that have the appropriate programme boards, that minutes are being taken, that we have risks, assumptions, issues, dependencies, benefits management. And the more complex the programme is, the more requirements there'll be around control and governance. Now, all of that can be, the responsibility for doing it can be delegated down to program managers, PMOs, all of that kind of thing, but the accountability cannot be delegated. And so the SRO remains accountable for making sure that all of that is happening. Now, a good program manager will ensure that's all set up and nicely leads up to the program board, which is where the SRO sits as a chair, so that they are in the right place at the right time with the right information to make the right decisions, and they can see the program operating effectively in order to put them in that position. So a good program manager will do that, but ultimately it's the SRO that is accountable. And then the final one is that the SRO needs to be able to give the same type of attention to the change and transformation activity as they do to their BAU area. I've seen some really bad examples where there's a major change program happening and the SRO is so sucked into the BAU here and now that they're just kind of paying the change and transformation program lip service, not understanding that that is going to become their BAU in the next 3 to 5 years when it becomes the new way of working and all of that kind of good stuff that we're trying to change for the future. So the SRO really might not need to have the same amount of time. It might be a 20-80 split or something like that, but it needs the same level of attention. And again, you can't delegate the decision-making authority. You can't delegate the accountability for running the program in accordance with governance and controls. You can't delegate being accountable for delivery of the benefits. So the SRO needs to be involved to ensure that those things are happening and ultimately to protect themselves from a work perspective. So we need to make sure that the SRO understands that they need to treat it as if it is another objective alongside their business as usual objectives that they need to deliver. A couple of things to avoid, which I'll just flash over, is we've assumed here in this model that the SRO is picked because they are the senior leader of the area that is being changed or transformed. That is by far the best way to pick an SRO. So if we're in a financial setting, in a bank for instance, and we're changing the operating model for mortgages, you would expect the director of mortgages or the head of mortgages or someone senior within mortgages to be the SRO that is involved right from the start about discussing what the future operating model for mortgages needs to be, putting together the business case and then delivering the programme or having the accountability for delivering the programme. And same if you're in the public sector and you went into, I don't know, HMRC and it was the head of collections that was doing it because you were changing the collections operating model. I've seen some really bad examples where people like heads of transformation or heads of technology or directors of technology or directors of shared services have been appointed the SRO for a customer-facing business unit because they own the program managers or they own the technology that is being implemented that's going to underpin the change. Critical stakeholders, but absolutely not the right person to be the SRO. They don't know the business that is being changed. They are in a position where they're potentially going to be making decisions that will impact how the business is undertaken, and it's by far a better switch if you have the business leaders, the SRO, supported by the head of technology, the head of change, etc., as a key stakeholder providing their subject matter expertise into the SRO. The other thing just to be aware of is appointing an SRO after the business case has been signed off by someone else completely. That's a little bit unfair if they're suddenly being told, oh, by the way, we've already signed you up to a contract, here's what needs to be delivered, we've already worked out what resources and everything you need, so you've got no manoeuvrability other than within the envelope of the business case. Here you go, crack on. Sometimes you have an SRO that comes on board after a business case has been signed because they're taking over a role, or that role didn't exist previously or something like that, but there needs to be a mechanism where they can formally respond to receiving that business case by sort of maybe writing back to the investment committee and saying, yes, I accept this, or I accept it with these caveats or these risks, etc., or I don't accept this and I think we need to go back through the business case and do another phase of discovery. So that's kind of SRO, under 15 minutes, so I can get the video posted on LinkedIn because that's the limit of time. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, hopefully it's helped. We'll talk about other roles in the future. Thank you all for listening.